Hey guys, this Modern on Budget is actually dedicated to a friend's sibling because they wanted to get into literally any Goblin deck, I think. So this deck is actually for Luke Nelson, and it's called Goblin Moon. And so the idea of this deck is you're going to play a bunch of goblins, and you're going to make them unblockable. So the key combo of the deck is going to be Goblin King. All goblins get +1/+1 and have Mountain Walk, which means that they're unblockable as long as your opponent controls a mountain. Now, likelihood that your opponent controls a mountain is fairly high because red is really popular in Modern, but just in case they don't, we have Blood Moon. Non-basic lands are mountains, which means not mountains in addition to other types. They lose all other types and they become a mountain, which does technically mean, for example, that this Forgotten Cave would be a basic mountain as we play it, or this Castle of Embereth is a basic mountain as we play it. But Blood Moon is an amazing card, and a lot of games will just be won by you playing Blood Moon. So we're going to start by talking about some of the other creatures as well. So we do have Goblin King, but then there's Goblin Chieftain, which says haste. Other goblin creatures you control get +1/+1 and have haste. And then I believe that's the only other one that actually pumps. Yeah. So you have 8 cards in your deck that pump all of your goblins. Then you have Goblin Ringleader that says haste. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. And then you put all goblin cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. Now, this is basically just refill your hand after you've played out all of your goblins, but there's a neat little trick. You'll notice that there are 2 Tarfires here. Those are technically tribal instant goblin, so those can be grabbed by Goblin Ringleader as well. I do have Lightning Bolt as a 3 of though, because Lightning Bolt is really good. And though it can't be grabbed by Goblin Ringleader, it does a lot. So then we also have Bonecrusher Giant, which is the only non-goblin creature in the deck. But it's more burn. It's just more removal or a way to stop damage prevention. But it's also a creature. It's a spell that turns into a creature, and though it's not a goblin, you could see it as, oh, I'm just playing 3 extra burn spells. And though they're not necessarily the greatest burn spell in the world, they do come back later. They're just not necessarily a goblin. Then we have Goblin Piledriver as a 1 of protection from blue. Whenever it attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking goblin. This card is insane if it's unblockable with something like Goblin King. Just make it unblockable, and then suddenly they are taking probably 20 damage just from this. If you are going against a blue deck, you don't even need Blood Moon. But it's in here as a 1 of just because the other cards in the deck are so powerful as well. Now there's our turn 1 plays. Fanatical Firebrand, which is a haste 1/1 that you can tap to sack it to deal damage. This is just another 1-drop. It's just a budget 1-drop that you can play on turn 1 to swing in and deal damage. And then later you can sacrifice it so that you can kill one of their creatures, kill one of their planeswalkers, or at least damage it, or just add extra damage to them. Skirk Prospector is a huge card in the deck. It says sacrifice a goblin, add a red. And I'm going to get into what you can do with that in a moment when I explain this card. Mog War Marshal, 2 mana, 1/1. And it has Echo. At the beginning of your upkeep, if this came to the battlefield under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost. You're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're just going to play it for its normal cost, which... No, Echo cost is required. Never mind. I don't really I didn't really read the echo part because you're not using it for that. What you're going to do is you're going to play it. But it says, when Mog War Marshal enters the battlefield or dies, put a 1/1 red goblin creature token onto the battlefield. So when it enters, you get another goblin. And if you have Skirk Prospector, you can sacrifice Mog War Marshal so that when Mog War Marshal leaves, you get another goblin. And then you sacrifice the 2 goblins it made, and suddenly you have 3 red mana. Which means turn 2 Blood Moon. And you don't even need Mog War Marshal. Technically, you could do turn 1 land, Skirk Prospector, turn 2 land, sack Prospector, tap your 2 lands, and play Blood Moon. And then basically, against certain decks, just win. But Mog War Marshal does combo out really nicely with Skirk Prospector. You don't even need to necessarily sacrifice the War Marshal because getting the extra tokens, because getting those extra tokens can just be extra power on the board for things like Chieftain and King. Anyway, those are the creatures. There is Conspicuous Snoop. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast goblin spells from top of it. That also counts Tarfire. So one could make an argument for putting more Tarfires in. But if you're not sure that you want to stick, if you're gonna stick with goblins, you could possibly go up on that. But if you're testing the deck out, then lightning bolts are more reusable. But also Tarfire isn't as good as lightning bolt. It just has more synergy in the deck. But Conspicuous Snoop also says, as long as the top card of your library is a goblin card, it has all activated abilities of that card. So the top card of your deck is Kirk's Prospector, and you have War Marshal in your hand. You can technically still do the same thing you could do with Prospector. It also, I believe that Skirk Prospector, and Fanatical Firebrand are the only actually activated abilities in the deck. Yes, that is correct. But it's still, being able to play off the top of your deck is very good. Castle Embrith. When it enters tapped, unless you control a mountain, which is why we're not running fewer mountains and possibly running more utility. It's just this way, if we don't have Blood Moon out, it's just a way we can add extra pressure onto the board, and we can take Blood Moon out in decks that might not be as relevant. Most of the time you're going to keep it in, but this still adds a little bit of validity to your deck, giving all of your dudes +1/+0. Forgotten Cave adds a little bit of utility. Let's say we have Blood Moon out. This isn't a basic land in our hand. It's just one when it enters the battlefield. So if we cycle it, we can still get that use out of it. Mountains is just the main card of the deck. Not main card of the deck, but the main color. And that is the main portion of that's the main board. And what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to basically play a bunch of cheap goblins and then play Blood Moon to restrict our opponent, and then play our lords to pump up all of our goblins, and then using Tarfire and Lightning Bolt to kind of control our opponent's creatures and or damage their health more. And that is the main board. The sideboard has Pithing Needle. Because of everything in the format, there's if you have this, it can basically deal with 80 to 90% of the current meta game. So you'll be bringing this a lot. It's just I would almost put it in the main board, except you just need to know what your opponent's playing before you can actually play it. Relic of Progenitus is Graveyard Hate. Abrade is Artifact Hate and Creature Hate. Goblin Crater Maker is Tron Hate, and Roiling Vortex is a way to combat control decks. It's a way, because since we're so aggressive, this deck allows us to kind of just deal extra damage to them each turn automatically. This way, if we have a really aggro early game, and then we get board wiped, this will still deal a damage to them each turn, and you can make sure that they aren't gaining life back. And though it says the part that says whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast that spell, it deals 5 damage to them. Though it says that, our way of cheating creatures onto the battlefield is through sacrificing other creatures for mana. So it's not like, oh, if they cast a spell and spell's mana cost is greater than the number of lands they control. No, it's just about mana. So we take no hurt from playing this card. If you're going against a control deck, I could see what I might recommend is taking out the 3 Bone Crushers and bringing in the 3 Roiling Vortexes as a way to just keep damaging your opponent. Anyway, that is the list. It's a very fun, very aggro, very unblockable deck. And like, even if you don't have Blood Moon out, a lot of the time your creatures just happen to be unblockable. It's a really cool deck, and I love to see goblins. Goblins are just hilarious. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the deck. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. If you have any questions on how the deck works, this can only really be like an introduction to the deck. I can't tell you every single combo that you can do with the deck, everything you can do in just 10 minutes, just 12 minutes. So please, if you have any questions, let me know below. Otherwise, I will see you next time.